Welcome to the Mead Musings podcast.
Here we open discussions on everyday hidden issues,
like living with disabilities and dealing with illnesses. We also cover issues around conditions such as stroke, diabetes, autism, cancer, leukemia, and also living in abusive relationships.
We focus on helping people see the light at the end of the tunnel.
This podcast is available on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe.
Welcome to another episode of the Mead Musings podcast. Today, my guest is joining us all the way from Pakistan. We will be talking about Muslim women in abusive relationships, and my guest is Dr. Aiman. So welcome to the Mead Musings podcast. Can you please tell us a bit of your background and why are you interested in this topic?
So thank you, Lura, for inviting me in your podcast. It's been a pleasure being here. So my name is Dr. Aiman. I am actually a cosmetic surgeon. I've been practicing in Turkey for past years, and I recently have started doing my podcast as well on Asian Muslim communities. And before starting my podcast on Asian Muslim communities, I have been working and living in different parts of Asia. I am myself in African Arab South Asian. So, and also being with a background of aviation, my father was from aviation. So I got to have visited a lot of countries around Asia. That's why I get to see a lot of cultures of Asia, and being from an Asian family, I always had a real insight of what happened in Asian Muslim communities and Asian Muslim families. So even before starting my podcast, I have been working as a coach in Asian Muslim communities, and I have been regulating people relationships. I've been teaching women how to get through abusive relationship, how to sustain themselves, and how to save themselves from the abuse in the households. Yeah, so this is my little intro.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. It sounds like you have interaction with the Muslim women that are in abusive relationships. How often do you come across them?
So you see, Oliver, it's not that when I want to make one thing really clear before starting my podcast, that people do have assumption that Muslim women are really being pushed, they're oppressed. This is not the case. Like in any community, there could be good people and bad people. And in Muslim community as well, there are good people who respect women, who love them, who shower love on them. And then there are people who are really abusive, like in any relationship around the world. So just I want to clear this misconception when it often comes to the Muslim women that they are being abused and they are being brutalized or they are facing a lot of oppression from their homes. This is not the case. So now coming back to the subject, we have to understand Asian communities as a whole. So in our Asian communities, we sadly have things around any Asian community. I can say that a lot of people, even from other communities, could relate that we have a patriarchal mindset that do revolve around men. The men are the head of the house, they earn, they have more rights, they have more say in what happens around community, what happens around home. So that's why, due to a lot of support that our society gives to these men, often some men tend to abuse their power. And when they abuse their power, of course, they have families that get affected from their behavior. They have children, they have wives, they have girlfriends who get really upset and really abused by what they have been doing to them. So if I would say that, yeah, I do come across a lot of women that have been in these kind of relationship. They could be Arabs, they could be coming from Southeast Asia, they could be coming from South Asia. There are a lot of women that I come across on a daily basis that come to me and they discuss their relationships with me. And one of the factors that these women does not have open spaces to talk about relationships, because even if you are not talking about Asian Muslim, if you just talk about Asian community in general, we are not very good with communication. We have not been taught communication for many years. So it's something, a generational trauma to us, right? So when you start having generational trauma, you does not have open spaces to talk about relationship, you does not have many people to coach you, then of course you start getting problems. And now it's a good sign that younger people are coming forward and they're discussing what they see is not right in their relationship, and they're opening up. So a lot of my clients are young Asian women around 25 years of age to 40 years of age, and sometimes they're married, other time they're engaged, sometimes they're even in relationships. And these kind of abuse do vary. Not all abuses are coming from their boyfriends or their husbands. Sometimes these abuses are coming from another male of their family. It could be their father, it could be their uncle, it could be their son, it could be their brother. So yeah, there's a whole large dynamics when we talk about abuse in Asian Muslim communities.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I recognize when you say Asian communities don't really know how to open up about their relationships. I think it's similar to us in Africa. We don't really talk about things. We just bottle up our emotions and we try to be in control when it's not supposed to be something that we're in control of. So I understand that. One other thing that you said that is also significant is the fact that men are seen as the head of the family. And this is one of the reasons that women stay in abusive relationships. They think if they leave this relationship, then they are not going to make heaven. From Asian perspective, when the husband is seen as the head of the wife, a wife that leaves her husband or divorces her husband will never make heaven. Is there any other reason that you want to add to that?
This is the same reason, right? When you make someone a human, other human head. When you make a human, other human not responsibility actually. When you make one human, other human reflection, or you make them that they have to control somebody, this is the outcome what majorly happens in any society. It could be women. If you make a woman head and give everyone under control of that woman is automatically going to turn abusive, right? So it could be anyone. And unfortunately in our society, because we have a lot of patriarchal upbringing. So unfortunately in our society, this is men. In some societies, this could be women. So yeah, sadly, this is the case. Also, if you see in Asian communities, and I am talking about general Asian communities, if you see the dynamics of Asia, we have close-knitted homes, right? We love living in close homes. We love living in communities. We live in big joint families. So what happened that often when you live in this kind of settings, or the men tend to go out, work and earn money, and the women tend to stay at home, bring up kids, take care of the home, cook food, and she does not have to earn. So, when you're not earning, when you do not have financial stability, when you are not independent, when you do not have experience when it comes to outer world, sometimes if you have really good husband, you have really good guardian or a father or a brother that is taking care of your son, it could come as a very prestige and a privilege that a lot of Asian Muslim women do enjoy. They love staying at home. They love spending their husband or son or brother money. They enjoy being the queen of the home. But sometimes if they do get in relationship, if they do get to born in a home where a person is not a nice person, he could be narcissistic, he could be mentally ill, he could have a lot of problems of baggage coming from past, he could be toxic. So what happens when these women do not have financial stability? They do tend to get a lot of exploitation, right? They do tend to get a lot of abuse because they don't have any options. They do not know what's happening in the outer world. They do not know how to go out and earn a living from themselves. So this make really hard for them to go out. And when you see, we have a male dominated society. If you come to different Asian countries, you will realize there are a lot of men outside. Women do not tend to go outside much more without their guardian or without their protector or without the man of the family, because we have a lot of male dominated society. So often, even if these women, they make plan, they stand up from themselves and they want to leave that relationship, what happens that the societal pressure or the things that have been happening in society for so many years, the set of the thing, does not allow them to get out of that situation so easily. So they have to work really hard to get out of any abusive situation that they might be in for a long time.
Thank you so much for all that. How important is it for women to be able to have their own financial security? Do you think it's better that women are given the opportunity to earn their own income as a Muslim woman rather than staying at home? They go out, they work, they earn their own income, and they have their own financial freedom. Because I say some of the abuse is from the fact that men are under a lot of responsibility. They have a lot of commitments to the salary they earn. Because of the large size of Asian families, there's a extended family that they are committed to. So they have a responsibility to take care of the extended family members as well as their own immediate family. So if women are given the financial freedom to earn some money, then does that not reduce the stress from the man?
Most of the time when these women come to me, the first attribute that I see in them, and I talk a lot about it and I talk with parents about it as well, that these kind of women do lack family support. They do not have strong support system. They do not know who to turn to, who to go to, who to discuss the condition. They just does not know how to talk with someone. They do not have friends who are caring. They do not have siblings or parents who listen to them properly. So this tends to happen a lot, and because of this, these women just stay silent because they do not know how to talk and what to talk about. They do not know how to find support. So that's why most of these women keep living in abusive households, keep living in abusive relationships. The second most important thing that I often see, and it's very common in these kind of women, that they do not have courage. Often these women are really naive, they are silent, they do not know how to act, they are not very emotionally stable, and they are not trained how to portray their emotions or anyone and how to look into a situation from reality, right? Because they're often living in a system where everyone tends to tell them he's going to change. If he's beating you now, he is going to change tomorrow. Maybe have a child and then he's going to change. But most of the time, the situation does not change for them. And because these women are so naive that they do not know what's happening in the outside world, they don't have any experience of working outside, they do not have financial stability, that they keep living into that abusive household and keep, having that abuse and keep sustaining that abuse. And not only they sustain that abuse, but also their child or their children do tend to sustain that abuse. The third thing which is most common as well is financial stability. But I have come across a lot of women that have been really independent, that earns well, that have good degrees, that have good education, that have good background, and still these women are being abused in their relationships, because coming back to the first point, that they do not have good support system. Mm-hmm. So when people often ask me, do you think that the financial stability is one of the factors that the women are being abused? I'd say that, yeah, it could be 25%. But believe me, I have seen more independent, highly earning women being crushed, being abused, being traumatized in their households than uneducated or unfinancially stable women. Why? Because often when these kind of women in Asian societies, you have to keep this in mind. What Muslims do does not reflect what does Islam say. Islam is a very nice religion which has high respect and regard for women. But there are certain people who call themselves Muslims, but they do not accept what Islam say to them in a whole spirit, right? So what happened, Asian Muslim societies, or even the Asian society in general, are not very supportive of strong independent women. So often these women tend to have a lot of pressure on themselves. So when they're going out, they're working, they're running business, they're doing job, they're excelling in their field, they always have this pressure that the family do not tend to see them as a fulfilled woman. They always assume that this woman would be successful. So if only she would get married, only be successful if only she's going to have a child. This woman is only be successful if she's going to sustain her marriage or make her marriage work. So when these women who have already faced so much criticism from society, when they walk into a relationship, when they're being married, so the first thing on their mind is that I don't want my parents to put in shame, right? I don't want to have divorce, because divorces in Asian Muslim communities are considered worse thing. They are still a taboo, they are still a stereotype. The people always assume, oh, divorces are not part of our culture. They are always part of Western society. So they don't tend to accept divorces that, because sometimes a divorce home is much more better than an abusive home, but they have not accepted this. The elders in our society have not accepted this reality. So sometimes these independent, financially excelling women have so much pressure on them that they tend to bear that abuse, and they keep bearing and because they don't know what to do. They want to prove themselves. They don't want to be ashamed. If you study Asian society and Asian dynamics really closely, and of course Muslims also comes into their society as well, we have huge aspect of shame in our society. Everything, every action is associated with shame. If I will do this, what will people think? If I will do that, what will people think? Oh, my parents would be ashamed of me. My husband would be ashamed of me. I would be ashamed of myself. So, prioritizing ourselves isn't a big thing in our society. Even a self-care is being shamed or shunned in our culture. So when these women tend to get into these kind of situations, they tend to avoid their feelings. They tend to avoid their abuse. They tend to avoid their trauma that have been going through. And they always think, no, I cannot get out of this situation because what will happen to my parents? What will happen to my kids? What will people say? So yeah, and these are three common things that I always tend to see in the cases that come to me. I guess this might be relatable coming from African society, because I have seen things in African society as well.
Definitely. Yeah. There is always the stigma on divorce. In African society, we are taught from the onset that marriage is a difficult thing. So you have to accept whatever you find in the marriage and you just stick with it, either it's good or bad. But I mean, like you said, some people are good and some people are bad. And with women becoming more independent and earning high salaries, that also often intimidates men when they find that a woman is a graduate, she's got this degree, she's got that degree. And I mean, sometimes you go to work and you're tired, you expect that your husband will be able to support you, probably cooking something in the kitchen. But in African mentality, men going to the kitchen is seen as a taboo.
This is the same thing here, now things are changing, and even before there were good men as well who would do household, who would help their wives, who would take care of them, who would listen to them. But then they would say that man is a chicken. They would label him as a chicken. Oh, he's afraid of his wife, right? Yeah. So when you start naming and shaming,
there's a name they call them in Africa. They call them woman rapper. As in, you are the one that is tying the wrapper and the woman is wearing the trousers. So she's the one in control. So she's controlling you and taking everything from you. Why would you be in the kitchen? Why would a man be cooking in the kitchen? But in the current society, women should be seen as a helpmate for the men. And the men should be able to support their wives as well. So I think it should be about being able to share responsibilities, either it is paying the bills, either it's training the children, either it's feeding the children, even changing nappies, that is seen as a woman's job, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. There's nothing called man's job or woman's job. When you get into a relationship, everything's become equal. You get to have equal jobs, you get to have equal responsibilities, you get to look after equally into every aspect that runs this household. But unfortunately, this is not something that is encouraged in our societies a lot, because at the time, even if the man is nice enough to do this, people always are there to shame him, to name him, to call him different kind of names, to make him feel bad about his choices. They always tell him that, okay, your wife wears pants in the house. So just to make that man frustrated and ashamed of how good he is at wife. And of course, now that we are in current era and we do think, and the women that belong to this new generation, they always say this, that we both should be having each and everything equally and tending to do each and every responsibility in equal ways. But I guess, this is something that is all over the world. It's not just about African or Asian or Muslim or Christian or Jew society. It's the same in West as well. Maybe bit change, maybe bit better, but it's same in every part of the world, because we have in our minds sorted the jobs of men and women in our way, and we does not want to change our thinking. Isn't that so?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I see women that drive buses. I see women that drive trains, train drivers and operators. And, there's so many women that are actually doing jobs that would have been labeled as a man's job before. But now everybody is equal. In my society here, where I live in the UK, you don't see anybody saying, "Oh, I'm this or I'm that. I'm the CEO of this." And everybody is just like, you see them on the street, you don't even know who they are. The CEO of Virgin Media, you could see him on the street sitting on the train and getting the train, which would otherwise not happen in African community. In African community, if he was traveling, he would have an entourage of like 10 people going with him, 5 cars going ahead of him. And I think that's the same thing in Asia communities as well. Here, everybody is just on the same level. You do things and like responsibility at home. A man could be the one sitting at home taking care of the kids, and a woman could be the one going out. I feel love should be about equality, communication, and respect. Respect for the individuals, respect for each other, and respect for both of you.
I completely agree. And, I always say that there's no harm if one of you is choosing to stay at home. If your wife is choosing to stay at home and want to bring your kid, take care of the kids, take care of the house, it's all right. And if you are choosing to earn for the home, it's all right as well. But that does not make any of you slave of each other. If your wife is staying at home, you have to admit, you have to understand that she have a 24/7 job as well. It's not like that she's staying at home, so she is having time of her life. She has a lot of jobs. She is doing job of a cook, of a housekeeper, of a nanny, of a teacher. She is doing a lot of jobs. She is juggling, and she is bringing up your kids. She is taking care of your home. So you have to understand there is no harm if your wife wants to work, and if your wife wants to work, then you have to understand that you have to share equal responsibilities with her. You cannot go to your office or your business and come home and relax in front of sofa having tea or any drink thinking, oh my God, I've done so much job. And then your wife might be coming from office or her business and she is looking after all the things in the home, because you don't have to burden her double. If she's making a choice to be a businesswoman or working woman, you don't have to burden her. You have to share that equal responsibility with her. Understand that if she have career goals, that does not mean that this should become her punishment, right? You have to bear each and everything equally with her. There might be some shortcomings and she is going to look after that, because in general, if we see that women are more better management and at doing tasks than men, okay, but at least try to do. If she is cooking dinner, maybe you can wash dishes. If she is taking kids to the bed, maybe you can sweep home by the time she is doing that. Take equal responsibility, not come home and sit like a lad and be a master and start thinking just because you earn money, then you get to be treated like a king, because you does not. Bringing home money does not make you a king. You have to understand that you are not doing any kind of extra effort to bring food at home. You are doing what is your responsibility. The way she is doing what's her responsibility, to try to have gratitude, try to understand where she's coming from, what her choices are, what kind of support does she need, what kind of relief does she need. I was thinking the other day that my father actually he has retired last year, so he just turned 60 and then he retired from aviation industry. And now he does not do anything, right? He is running a small business. He goes out with his friend. He enjoys his life, but he's retired now. He does not go to office anymore. He does have other activities and he tends to be merged in his activities whole day. Whereas my mother, she is not 60 as of yet. She is just 52 years old. But I was thinking, when is her retirement going to come? Is she going to say, oh, I have retired, right?
Women don't retire.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, when is she going to say, okay, from now on, I'm not going to get up in the morning, 10 breakfast for anyone. I'm not going to look after home. I'm not going to do things here. And this is the thing in our Asian culture that nobody teaches, that I was thinking that nobody taught my father that once he retired, okay, before he was doing job, after he retired, at least he can look after himself and then my mother can look after herself. But that does not happen. Even if he had retired, now my mother has to look him the same way she was doing when he was working. So my mother retirement isn't coming. And that's what, she's doing it by love. She is doing it because she likes him and she wants to do things for him. But doesn't that mean that she might want any of her husband to do same things for her as well? Like to make breakfast for her in bed, to wash her clothes, to iron her clothes. So this is not a thing or issue of just my parents. It's issue of a lot of women in Asian Muslim society and even other societies as well, that we are not being able to understand that women do need off time as well. They do need self-care as well. They do need me time. They need to take care of themselves. And we, especially the family that have to take care of our mothers, our daughters, the woman that is taking care of us for so many years, we have to realize this.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And I think you've nailed everything on point, and it's not much more that I can say about it right now. Women have no retirement age. We work 24/7, and some women really don't understand that they need to give themselves time to rest. They need to take a break between caring for the family, cooking, shopping, and cleaning the house. We need to be able to give ourselves some self-love, TLC, tender loving care. Give ourselves that love. And until we recognize that we need that, we won't have any time to retire. And of course, we don't really retire, to be honest. We go to work, you go out to make a living, and then you come back, you start cooking, you start cleaning, and by the time you finish, you are tired, and you are supposed to still give your husband some affection in bed, And this is sometimes some of the things that cause friction, because by the time the woman has come back and done all the work, she's tired and she just like to go to sleep. And that's when the man is saying, oh, what's up there? We have explored everything that we could talk about that. And I think maybe anymore we'll discuss in future. But what advice would you give to women in abusive relationship for the future?
I would like to say that if you are a woman in any kind of abusive relationship, and abuse does not mean that you have bruises on your body. Abuse does mean that you might have bruises on your mind. Abuse does mean that you have tears, you feel uncomfortable, you feel exploited, you feel entrapped, and you do not have open spaces to go out and talk about these spaces. Find support. There's a lot of support that is online. There are a lot of groups that are online, but find support. Go out, go people that might be able to understand you. If you do not have non-judgmental people and community around you, go outside and talk to strangers, talk to other people. If you have money, if you have finances, go see a psychologist, go see a psychiatrist, talk to them about your condition. Don't stay up into that relationship for the sake of your parents or society or anyone around you, because they are not going to bear the consequences. Only you are going to bear the consequences. And everything is hard. Staying in an abusive relationship is hard. Walking out of abusive relationship is hard. You have to choose your heart. And once you will choose your heart, you will only have guidance and good way through your way. There might be some really hard times that you will not know what you are going to do, but eventually you will figure it out. And with every hardship there come ease. So don't stay in any kind of relationship just because people have been telling you to stay, and that person is not going to change. That person haven't changed for 25, 26, 27 years. That is not going to change for the rest of your life. And don't bring any child in this world to make that relationship work. It's never going to work. We all know none of the relationships have worked. None of these men or people have changed just because there was child involved. Things become more difficult for the children. So go out, explore your opportunities, learn skills, walk, be confident, have courage, and start living for yourself, because you are a really important person, and there's no one that is going to understand you, that is going to live for you the way you are going to do it for yourself, because you are what you need for the rest of your life, and there's nobody else.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aiman. It's been so nice having you on our podcast today, and you are absolutely right with everything you've said. Nobody will take responsibility for you like you would do. Nobody would love you the way you would love yourself. Women out there need to start taking responsibility for themselves. They need to love themselves more. And as you said, bringing a child into the world thinking the child is going to change the relationship, it doesn't happen that way. That doesn't work. It only makes things worse, because you see the child and then you are just angry. It's a ripple effect. So don't think you are in a bad relationship or in an abusive relationship that, well, I'm going to have a child for him. That doesn't work. Please take the action that you need to. Seek counsel, seek support, and divorce is not something that you should look at as not right. I know there's a stigma on divorce, but if it saves a life, some people end up losing their lives in the process of trying to stay married, and the men abuse them, and the scar is there on them for life. So they just don't know what to do. But right now, what I'm saying is take an action, speak to somebody, and get help, and get out of the relationship if you can, if you want to. I mean, if that's what you need to do, get out of the relationship. Don't stay in an abusive relationship because you think, oh, well, what are people going to say? People will always still talk about you. Either you die or you leave. So please, just don't stay in an abusive relationship for the sake of being married, or for the sake of having children, or for the sake of whatever it is. Just get out. So thank you so much, Dr. Aiman, and I hope to have you on my podcast again soon.
Thank you so much, Oliva. It was wonderful being on your podcast. I love talking about this subject. It was just really close to my heart. And if anyone of the audience or the woman coming from Asian Muslim community or Asian community wants to connect with me, they can definitely connect with me. I am on Instagram with name of Dr. Aiman. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on any of the social media portal. And definitely it was lovely being here. And I would always look forward to coming back again on your podcast with another topic.
All right. And what's your Facebook ID?
So it's Dr. Aiman, DoctorAiman. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. I have Facebook page of the same name as well. My podcast is YK Asia. You can listen on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We do discuss different aspects of Asian Muslim community. We celebrate being Asian Muslims, so we have different topics that we discuss every week with different kind of guests. So maybe you can have insight of that as well. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
A big thank you to all our listeners who have been sending us messages through the message link. I would like to thank everyone who has listened in so far and contributed to this podcast. Thank you so much. We couldn't have done anything without you. Keep listening, keep sharing, keep downloading, and keep liking. Thank you again.